What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Moving with Life. This is episode 113 already. Pretty cool. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening or watching, however you're getting access to this podcast. Pretty stoked. Like I said last time, I believe I mentioned just along the lines of, I feel like I've gotten into a decent flow. You know, these past few episodes, yeah. I'm not doing tobacco. It's just some gauze. So I stopped. I haven't. The bleeding stopped even the other day once as soon as my procedure got done. But I've been putting gauze anyways for whenever I eat because I'm still trying to keep the area clean. Obviously, instead of doing like, let's say even a standard like brush in the morning, brush after you eat, and brush at night. Now I'm just trying to be extra careful because I still have stitches. It's still like a rather sensitive area. Doc said for sure make sure you keep it. Basically, I'm gonna be eating on my left side from now until I get the crown and everything. You know, until it's set, and then until the crown is set as well. Once I get that fitted on there, he's like, just eat on your left side, just for from now until we get everything else done. So I was like, okay, cool. But yeah, and it's interesting because I'm putting some gauze here over the area, and then on the outside part of my gum, and eating. It's interesting how much like stuff like gets stuck in the gauze like while I'm eating. I'm like, man, that's pretty crazy. So, anyway, it's just a hyper conscious thing that like it's kind of been brought to light to me because I hadn't had to deal with it before. And as far as the wisdom teeth thing, not to stay on this tangent for long like I did the last time, but it's a whole different thing. And I'm eating just fluids and soups and jellos and stuff for multiple days. And for this one, it's not so much that it's just but it is the care is definitely the same as far as like trying to keep this area clean, and then like, I'm eating everything on this side, so it's okay. I'm doing good. It's all good. No tobacco. No, I don't chew. The closest thing I did was there's a thing called coffee grind something. That's where I get my caffeine fix. Instead of drinking coffee, I would just use little coffee pouches. And they work pretty. They work pretty well. I would only use like one, maybe two on a long day. But because of my blood pressure and all this other stuff, health-wise, for myself on a personal level, I stopped doing that too. So yeah, because I was doing energy drinks and caffeine pouches basically. So stopped doing that. Everything's getting better. But let's move into what today's topics. And the reason why I want to do this now, I need to do this now, is because I'm almost done with the book. I mentioned this last time. I'm almost done with Talent War. I don't want to pick it up because I have my bookmarkers already set. But I'm trucking through the Talent War, and I'm on chapter 9 now. Yeah, chapter 9. When I read chapter 7, it's titled "Know Your Audience: Attracting Top Talent." And the beginning goes about how Mike Sarraille, one of the co-authors, where he grew up, how he got drawn to the military, then he got drawn to special operations in the Marine Corps, which is Force Recon, which is now it's MARSOC, for those who are aware. And then he got to work with some SEALs, then became an officer SEAL, which is pretty cool. But where I want to start today, we're gonna jump right into this, just because I don't know if I want to do the whole chapter, which I could, because I only want to bring up several points that I feel like have happened in my career, to where I just want to. I think this was part of, because they have a podcast where they were on with Jocko, and I'll put in the show. I'll make a note to put this in the show notes. But I remember there's a certain section of the episode when they were on with Jocko's podcast. In show notes. And they were talking. Jocko was reading through the book, and then the guys were giving the gentlemen, they were bringing in their feedback as to why they wrote it or what led them to that and how they've experienced it in the business sector now. But the parts I want to read today are very prevalent. I'm like, yep, I definitely remember that, and I definitely try to do that myself now. And this kind of just lights. It gives me like a confirmation bias. Really, that's what it is. It gives me a confirmation bias as to like it gives me some more evidence to show that I'm on the right track as far as my goals, especially when I have if I were to have people working for me, or when I'm working for, or as I'm working for people as well, for others as well. When I have superiors and then subordinates, because it works both ways. It works both ways, working up and down the chain of command. But there was just some points that I noted on here. Like, man, I think I should at least go through, even if I don't talk much detail into like my personal story. If I couldn't think of one right away, but the points that are being brought up, I'm like, yep, it's necessary. And if you're an employee and you don't like your job, or you do like your job, it might be some of these things as to why it works. And it all has to do with attracting top talent, and how A level talent will attract A level talent when hiring people. When hiring will attract A level players, to get hired onto the company. And there's a whole depth, and there's a whole like tangent we can go on for that. But for now, let's jump into this. And as we go through, I'll see how far I want to go into the chapter, or if I'm just going to do the section that I wanted to do in the first place. So the section I'm going to do is it's chapter 7, page 157. The subsection is called "What Talented People Look For." Attracting talent requires knowing what talented people want. Most people. So I'm paraphrasing here because I want to get to the main point of this first section. Many companies assume that the answer is money and perks. They offer competitive salaries and wonderful creature comforts, i.e. high espresso machines. Jumping down now, beyond the money, talented people look for talented leaders and colleagues, a sense of community, challenge, opportunities for professional and personal growth and purpose. And that's the end of that little intro. Like I said, I cut it out a piece, and then that main part is just the part that I read. Beyond the money, talented people look for talented leaders and colleagues, a sense of community, challenge, opportunities for professional and personal growth and purpose. That part, like this whole section really hit off for me, because I think sometimes me included in this statement, we think we want less work, or we want more time off. But one thing that I've definitely reached, and when I talk to people in general, it's that that's actually not entirely correct. Because if we have good bosses and good coworkers, we'd be way more willing to go through the suck with them than quitting or just leaving altogether, or complaining so much. I'm trying to think of a better. I had this better planned in my head. But the point is still exists, is like when you have a good culture and you don't have to get along about everything. I'm not saying you have to be like best friends and go out after work and have drinks and stuff. I'm not talking about that. But when you guys are going after the same goals, after the same things, and you feel like this unity, whether you think so in the moment, or it takes you a little bit of time to realize it, it's like that is what it is, and that's why I like this part of the chapter. All right, so the subsection of this part is titled "Talented Leaders and Colleagues." Talent attracts talent. Why do you think special operations and top companies are top magnets? Great talent wants to work for great talent, says CHRO Tom Lokar. Jumping down now. Ultimately, people don't leave companies, they leave bosses. This is the part of the podcast that really got me. Ultimate people don't leave companies, they leave bosses. It is very difficult to leave a great boss, even if someone is offering you more money. You want to work with and for good people. Lieutenant Colonel Brian Decker says, you want to work for somebody who has a compelling vision and a strategy to achieve it. On the other side, if leadership is terrible, it is difficult to get talented individuals to stay, even if the compensation is good. As CHRO Don Robertson says, A talent doesn't want to work for B talent. A bad leader is highly destructive to the overall culture and ultimately your ability to attract and retain talent. And that part, I feel like it speaks on its own. And that I kind of already touched on it, when I was doing this little intro to this part of the book. But it's like whether we realize it in the moment, or if it takes a little bit of time when we leave, and you move jobs and you have a better boss, and you're willing to do more. You're willing to stay extra hours, and there's a balance there too, where you shouldn't stay extra hours all the time. But But when you have that good boss and you know they're going to pull for you, you know they got your back, it's a lot easier to just say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, good to go. We'll get it done. I'll get it done. Yes, I'll go in. Yes, I can cover. Yes, I can do this project. Yes, my team can do it, et cetera, et cetera. Next part, a sense of community. From a psychological perspective, most people join gangs or terrorist groups for the same reason most people join the Navy SEALs. They want to be part of a team. Two wildly different sides of the spectrum, good versus evil, but ultimately, people in both organizations want the same thing. Jumping down now. When people feel a sense of community, they are more loyal, and in today's corporate culture of people hopping from job to job, loyalty is more important than ever. To feel like a part of a community, people must feel they provide value to the community. To attract talent, if you need to have a culture in which you clearly recognize people's achievements, and make them feel valued. So if you have people working for you at this point, but it needs to be genuine. That's part of the key term that I bring up a lot, and Jocko doesn't say it directly. Some of these other people don't say it directly, but like someone like Gary Vee does, they say it a lot. Where it's like, and I'm not saying Jocko and them don't say genuine in their podcast or in what they mean or what they say, because they definitely have, especially in these more recent episodes. But my point is that when you're in a leadership position, you have like one person, 2 people, 5 people, 10 people, 20 people under you. When you have that, you should be able to recognize, or you should want to be able to recognize what a person's strengths are and their weaknesses. You can help them kind of balance that and get their weaknesses up and let them prosper with their strengths. But even with that, it's having that insight to be able to say that and see that. Because when you don't, that's when you the employee or the coworker, whoever, they might feel ignored. They might feel like their purpose, like they might feel like they're not fulfilling their purpose, but also fulfilling having a fulfillment part of having a vital part in the mission, in the project, whatever it may be. Next section is challenge. More than 300 people have died trying to climb Mount Everest, yet there's no shortage of people attempting to climb each year. Becoming a Navy SEAL or Green Beret requires pushing your body past all physical and mental limits. The training has 80 to 85% attrition rate and can break even elite athletes. And that's that part. Growth, opportunities, autonomy, and ownership. Remember that talented people have high drive. They have a growth mindset and are always striving for more. When talented people are looking for a new job, they are rarely looking to move laterally. They want to move up. They want responsibility and greater impact. They want to work toward bigger goals and grow personally and professionally. Jumping over a little bit, talented people also want autonomy, the ability to have some control over their own destiny. In other words, talented people want ownership, not necessarily an equity stake or an actual share of the company, but ownership that allows freedom to make decisions, freedom to plan, freedom to execute. This should not be hard to achieve since good leaders implement decentralized command, which is built on trusting subordinates with ownership and autonomy to make things happen. Talent feeds off this leadership methodology. Valuing talent gets you valuable talent. As we discuss further into Chapter 10, providing growth and development opportunities to your talent is one of the smartest choices you can make. Not only does it lower attrition, which saves you money, but it allows you to source talent for middle to senior level leadership positions within your company, as discussed in Chapter 6, Knowing Thyself. Where are we at with time? We still got a little bit of time. Okay. So the next part is purpose. Anyway, well, before I get to that, it's like, this is where, they didn't say it, but giving ownership and extreme ownership, as Jocko would say, is your when you have those people, those right fitting people in those leadership seats, even if it's from your team lead, which has 4 to 5 people under them, to then your, I guess in military terms, be platoon, so be 40 people. So when you go from the smaller parts fire teams to squads and then to platoons. Um, um, Having those right leaders, having the right people in those leadership seats, goes a long way. It goes a long way to now you as the leader of this whole, let's say 100 people. You're the leader of 100 people. You can now move. You can help the strategic part. There's tactics, and there's tactics which you think like day to day, even month to month, like goals, and you have your strategy. Okay, where does the company want to go? Does he want to open more stores? Do you need you as a leader, do you want to move up to that next regional level or that division level of leadership? It all depends on your goals too. But when you have the right leaders in those mid, not lower seats, but the mid-level seats and so on, that you can trust and you can let them run with it, and they come with you with a plan like, hey sir, ma'am, this is what we're going to do. This is the plan. This is what I think we're going to do. You can put your input, because you're like, oh, I've experienced this before. You think about this, or hey, why did you think like this and not like this? You have these smaller, tactical meetings, but when you're able to let them run with the tactics, the day-to-days, the week-to-week, the month-to-month, you can then look bigger picture. Where do you want your store to go? Where do you want your business to go? What network needs to be done so you can expand, whatever that means to you. That's what I got from that part. All right, next one is purpose. Inspired people seek out inspiring organizations. Talented people want to know that their work matters. They want purpose. You want to work in a role where you can contribute value, says Lieutenant Colonel Brian Decker. You can make all the money in the world, but if you're not having an impact, it doesn't matter. You will feel dissatisfied because a life without purpose is life unfulfilled. The greatest currency in life is the impact you have on others. People want to know their why, their purpose. In the military, one's purpose is easy to identify, defending and protecting one's nation. In the private sector, the importance of a role can be less clear. It is up to you to define the purpose you provide. It is up to you to define the purpose you provide for your prospective employees. For example, a construction crew's purpose might be building homes for people, or an oil rig worker's purpose could be contributing to the country's energy independence. Even if the purpose is not immediately obvious, it does exist. Your company must fulfill some need in the world or your local community, or it wouldn't exist. You must identify that need and translate it to prospective employees. Nobody wants to feel like their time and efforts are worthless. So as a company, you need to tell prospective employees what impact they can have by joining your organization. That's probably the toughest one for me at the moment, especially when I'm working with younger adults. That, if I put myself when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, I had an ultimate goal, which was play music. But some of these life things that I look back at, realizing that's a life lesson now, and trying to bring that to light, in this podcast. Really, that's what I'm doing. It is difficult for me to put into words to try to help younger people understand, because I've only lived it so far, and that's where the experience comes in. So once you live it, you go through certain situations. That's when you begin to understand. When I was it hold on, is it this one? I know I talked about it, like it was somewhere in the last podcast. I haven't talked about it like right now, but anyways, as far as purpose, we'll just stay on this part before we get into the last couple sections. It's hard to define, because especially when we're tasked to do things, and sometimes the things don't make sense. But then it gets to a point where we just got to get it done, because we don't want to. If we get it done now, then it keeps us from having to stay late, or use another day when we can move on to the next project, whatever that looks like. It is difficult for me to try to bring that to light to others that I work with that are younger, haven't experienced too much. Maybe where we're at now, this is their first job, so they don't have a lot. They have good judgment. They're very smart. They're very capable. But the overall experience level, having multiple jobs, even in the past, even if they had one job per year for the last 5 years, which is not likely, that's where the line in the sand starts to be drawn for me, because then now it's like, okay, having to explain to them like, hey, this will benefit you, but you got to get it done now. And they're like, well, how or why? And I'm like, because when you go, even if you work the 20 years we're at now, 20, 30, people work 30 years. It's a little different, but if you're not, and even if you stay in 20 or 30 years in the line of work that we do, at the way the life works now, it's like you're probably going to become a civilian. You're probably going to keep on working, even if you save up enough money to retire, unless you actually have a plan and you actually know what you're going to do. Because what had started happening, 2012-ish, 2013, is that all the retirees started getting bored. They didn't want to play golf every day like they thought they would. They didn't want to be at home and just sleep all day like they thought they would. You get bored, and so that's why there's greeters at Walmart. And I'm pretty sure I've talked about this offline, but the point is, that's where you have these greeters at Walmart and all these stores now, and you have some of the innovation coming in is from retirees that are now working again because they realize, oh no, this is not for me. Retirement is not for me. So yeah, experience, purpose, why. Even that, you sometimes you think your why is like, oh, or you think your purpose is to, or the old school is like you work your 20, 30 years, you get out, you get your pension, you get some social security, and you go out and play golf every day. And that's not the way it is now. It's definitely not for me. And I can only give my further insight into myself because, like, I've had a few jobs. I want to say I've had several jobs, but I've had a few jobs from the age of 17, 16, I think 17. Yeah, 17 is safe to say. Maybe 18. Either way, that age range to now, in these past, now it'll be 12 years, 10 years minimum. That's the difference. And so then having to convey the why, the mission. Hey, this is good for you. This is all good, also good for the team. That's kind of what I bring in. Is like, hey, well, hey, if we don't get this done, then we're all gonna have to come in. Versus, hey, let's just get this done right now, and we're squared away and we're good. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to even put into words right now for me because like I'm still trying to figure out how to best convey that, because some of these things that I'll bring up, it's like it doesn't make sense yet because I haven't lived it, and some of these things I have lived. So yeah, we'll move on. Salary and benefits. Despite what some here we go, perfect. So despite what some would have you think, money isn't everything, though it does play an important role. In a survey of 16,000 employees spread across the globe, Dr. Josh Codden found that people who are paid the most were not necessarily the ones who were the happiest or most engaged. Especially for talented people with high drive, money is usually a concern up front, but not the most important factor down the road. Special operations soldiers handle highly classified material, regularly risk their lives, and have highly refined leadership skills. Yet they are paid. Yet they are paid much less than senior level managers in a corporate world. Similarly, many talented people choose to become teachers or nurses or any number of underpaid careers. What we have identified both in the military and private sector is that the talented people find more satisfaction in challenge and purpose than money. Exactly what we get with what we've gotten to. But let's be honest, pay matters. To attract talent, salaries and benefits must be reasonable or competitive for the market. You don't have to be at the top, but you certainly don't want to be at the bottom. You need to be in the ballpark. So again, money is important, but when you have a purpose and when you feel important in the workplace, you're likely to stick around. When you have a good boss that recognizes, hey man, good job today. Hey, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for your work. Hey man, that was a great idea today. Good job. Just many of those little one-liners that they make a difference. And when you're in the seat, and I will argue that you need to be able to recognize those things, or at least start developing, start thinking. Especially if you think you want to be your own boss, and then you start having employees. It's work, but it's very fulfilling, and that's definitely one of my one of the most fulfilling things I've been able to do in the past. When I leave the retail store, Harbor Freight, I left there in 2014, and once I got into leadership positions, and then I started having I got to see different types of bosses, and then doing what I'm doing now, and some of my guys and gals that are out there, doing good work. My approach this time around, when I had these guys and girls under me, my approach was very upfront. The commander's intent was very clear from me, and then me to make sure that I have my commander's intent from up top down to them, so that they can understand, hey, they are important to me. They are important to what we're doing. Every single person's piece of the puzzle is important, and it's vital. Because and then the best part, literally the best part, is the fact that we got to work in a pandemic, and not the pandemic for pandemic's sake, but the fact of the team and the team we had, the teams we had that made the team in total. It just amplified my approach, and again my intent, what I expected from them, but then what they can expect from me, and on a daily basis. Because that's what it was. It was a daily thing. It was a weekly thing that was just constant progress. And we can't say we've ever been through a pandemic, and none of us were even alive the last time there was a pandemic. So, yes, there's been all these little things, but not while we've been in the workplace, or in this case, healthcare, in a healthcare facility. Yeah, and so it's important. It's important to be able to recognize. Because in this case, currently, I don't have a say on pay, but I do have a say on seeking out the talent from individuals and taking out their strengths, so that we can see where everybody primarily could belong. But then we will switch it up so that people, and I'm even doing it in the team that I have right now. I like doing there's a certain part called triage. I talked about it before, and I like doing that. I like being on that front line where I get to see a patient come in, and we start dissecting the story and start seeing what's needed and how can we help the best. But then there's also other sections of our job where it's like where we've been rotating now, and it's good and it's cool. But I think the foundation of feeling comfortable doing the triage, it will help me accelerate in these other things, and it'll be easier for me to actually pick it up because I have a baseline foundation of how our system works and my piece of the puzzle. But now I can start expanding on the next piece of puzzle. I work well in chunking things. It's not that I can't do it okay, but I'd rather chunk a piece, one piece at a time, and then at the end of the day, you'll see your actual progress. That's my approach. That's the way I think about it. I'm gonna stop there. So that's a section. So it was page 157 through 163 ish, and the title for the chapter was "Know Your Audience, Attracting Top Talent," and the subsection of this whole part was what talented people look for. And yeah, I hope I brought some decent points today, because when you're working, if you have your own business, it's a one person show. It's a totally different thing than even if you have, like one of my mentors, he has 5 employees, maybe. Used to be 6. But it's a very small organization. And for something like that, it's even more important because everybody's really dialed into their sector and what their job is in the process, in the organization, in their little machine. Literally, his neighbor is a company that's twice as big, and twice as big size, but employee wise probably 4 or 5 times as much. We're talking 40 employees now. Like let's say 1 or 2 top, and then several middle, and then you have your employees. So you're talking 40 to 50 employees that are in and out on a daily basis. But regardless of which one it is, the principle, I will argue, is the same, because the only way you're going to get people to stay, if you have control of salary, you need to be competitive. If you don't have control of salary, and you have a team, you have to be willing to be in front, but then recognize, and even sometimes you might run into that person that has just a little too much ego, like just a little too much. But you have to, that's where you have to play the game. You have to feed the ego, but get to know that person and get to know them genuinely. Going back to that word genuinely, that's like the word of the day, or word of this episode anyways, where it's like you have to be able to do that and build that relationship. That's going back to the principles that we've talked about with extreme ownership and whatnot. You have to be able to build that relationship and get to know them. Like, hey, what's going on? Where are you from? And when you get to know where they're from, and you get to know some of their likes, some of their dislikes, you get to kind of know their private life just a little bit, just enough to get to know them, and then you give them some details. You give them some details about you, and then you go from there. It's a pretty cool thing once you start building, you start building these relationships, and then you realize, a year later, 3 years later, 5 years later, where it's like, oh yeah, I remember that person, or I remember that. Oh yeah, I had this boss that, he cared. He actually gave a damn about what we're doing, and then he gave a damn about me on an individual level. He cared. He cared. She cared. Doesn't matter. They cared, as they were a good leader. I wouldn't mind working for them again. So yeah, we'll stop there. Like I said, I was debating where to do the whole chapter or just that section, and now where we're at on time, I'm like, nah, I think that's enough information for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. Past 30 days, we've had 397 listens, which is awesome. A lot of primarily Columbus, Ohio, Seattle, Washington, and West Chester, Pennsylvania. So if you're listening to this episode and you're from there, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Top countries: United States, United Kingdom, Belgium. Really cool. We have a Rich, a Brandon, and then another name. It's probably like a username. It's not even like a person's name. But that's what's been going with that. If you'd like to support the podcast, etsy.com/shop/movingwithlife. I'll have that in the show notes for these episodes. I already mentioned, this merch is brand new except for the OG time over money concept. But ultimately the point is to spread the word, to live it, as this community builds, wherever you are listening from. It's being able to move, and no matter what's going on, it's like trying to get back on that track and learning, developing, and then, like it says for the tagline, memories, philosophies, and community. It's the most important thing. So take care of your team, take care of your guys and girls, take care of each other, take care of yourself physically and mentally. And with that, I think I will stop there, and we'll see you all very, very soon.